And we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to what was scheduled to be the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 164. But had some difficulties here getting a hold of my scheduled dialogue partner. So I thought I would just come on live at the appropriately scheduled time and see if anybody shows up to hang out and just talk to people about JKD. So I'm moving over here to Facebook to get a look at if anybody's chiming in. Okay, so Terry Valor is here and Mark Black is here. Guys, like I was just saying, I'm not sure what happened to Stan, but I have not haven't been able to raise him today. Yeah, all the usual suspects. So okay, I'm gonna do something here with you three thugs who have shown up. Who else is here? Rob Lee's here. All right, so let's do this, guys. I'm just gonna keep for the next few seconds checking in and seeing who's here. So Kos is here, Rob's here, Mark's here, Terry Valor. All right, so somebody go ahead and type in something of interest in the JKD world, and let's get a discussion going. if you're up for it, just type in the first thing that comes to mind. Hey, Russell. Yeah, like I said, I'm not too sure what's happened to Stan. So if we can get something going on our own here with you guys, we will not have spent the time in vain. Okay, so does anybody have anything that they wanted to talk about? And otherwise, I will close this down and reboot for another time. Okay. How do you guys interpret the progressive weapons chart in the Tao? Kos, give me a page. Give me 1 second. Let me. I don't have it in the stack. What the heck is this? You have to have it. Okay. All right. The progressive. See, now if I was a true JKD nerd, I would know exactly what page the progressive weapons chart is on in whichever edition of the Tao you happen to look up. Zach, yeah, it's turned into something just like that because my scheduled guest hasn't shown up as yet. So the progressive weapons chart. I look like an idiot trying to flip through and find this bloody thing. If I was Richard Torres, I would know exactly where it's at. And Coase is not being of any help, is he? He's not telling, oh, Dwight, it's on page whatever and whatever. Okay, so while we do that, wait. Wait, I'm back here. I'm trying to see what's, I'm trying to do more than one thing at a time. Oh, okay. So is it different, Coase? Is it different between the editions, the original and the expanded, this progressive? But you got to send me a page, whatever you do, send me a page so I know what I'm looking at. Terry, how do you modify Thai boxing for the JKD framework? Actually, we talked about that just a little bit yesterday. Well, for one thing, the Thai boxers tend to stand a little bit squarer, like the hips are a little bit squarer in when facing the opponent, as opposed to the Baijong where everything's turned at a couple of degrees. And we've always said that that's because the Thai boxers, they wear a steel cup and they don't have to worry about the groin being exposed because the groin is protected. Okay, so okay, there we go. So one method of modifying would be to use the Baijong, left lead, right lead, or whatever, and another modification would be, you know, it's like, I'll tell you a funny story. In Ajahn Chai's 1982 Thai boxing video series, I suspect, because you know how Master Chai has a cute way of approaching the English language, and I realized that what was called regular, everything that's called regular in that video series comes from the rear, right? So I started to wonder. I wonder if he was saying rare, but somehow it came out as regular or vice versa. Anyhow, my point is, if you look at Thai boxing structure, a lot of Thai boxing is rear limb oriented. The major tools, the major weapons from Thai boxing are from the rear. Elbow, the knee, the round kick, what have you. JKD, you could say, is the opposite, where the lead weapon is what dominates. So that would be another modification, so to speak. But when you look at how people use the long foot jab in Muay Thai as an interception, then you have, let's call that a crossover, right, between JKD methodology and Muay Thai methodology. So the modifications can be very subtle, change the stance a little bit, change the emphasis, perhaps, blend the two of them, or what have you. Okay, so I'll just go with that for now, Terry. Modified Thai boxing for the JKD framework. Yeah. Okay. All right. So how do you guys interpret the progressive weapons chart? So here we go. Right in the beginning, it says your leading foot and hand constitute at least 80% of all kicking and striking. right? So, of course, what I'm looking at here is the I mean, it's that. Then it's drawings of right lead and left lead. Then it's the drawings of four corner parrying, which is what I call it. So I'm not sure that there's a whole lot to interpret as such. It's all, I guess it depends on context. I guess it depends on where we're going with this, and what the words mean. You know, progressive. I don't know. I don't think there's that much to interpret. So maybe. So I'm looking at your comments on. Okay, here we go. What I always do is to try to fill in certain weapons in certain sections. For example, psychics at number 1, but I haven't seen Bruce's annotations. Yeah. All right. So it's hard, close, to keep an eye on what's going on in the comment section, both in Facebook and in Be Live, right? So if I miss something, it's the drawing of a figure divided in 7 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know, man. I don't know that there's that much to interpret in this, but I'm probably misunderstanding what you're talking about. Zach says, I have a question. Can you break down the JKD rankings into deeper detail and what they mean? The JKD rankings, once again, right here in the stack. Zach, I'm not sure what you mean by JKD rankings. I saw something earlier today where somebody was kicking up a fuss with the fact that in some places in the world there is such a thing as black belt in JKD, and these are ranks assigned by reputable people in the JKD world. And I have always maintained that even though I wouldn't do it, if it works for somebody, I'm not going to say that person is 100% wrong. I personally wouldn't do it, but I also suspect that the people who have done it, in terms of professional success, I think that they have probably been a little bit more successful by using a commonly accepted motif, such as the black belt. Because, you know, if a guy wanted to write a book about motorcycle maintenance, and he titled the book Black Belt Motorcycle Maintenance, everybody would automatically know that this is a book about high level motorcycle maintenance, because the imagery, or like I said, the motif of black belt points to high level. So if some people decided that they would go with that as ranking in their facility, cool. But I thought, yeah, okay. So I was getting to that. I was just being a little bit verbose, Zach. Right. So this is, can I get it up here? Yeah. So this is, I don't know, July 1988. This is where this article, which I think was probably one of the first times that people had seen it, this article on Bruce Lee's ranking systems, right? Wait, let me get it right. This way. Yeah, that's where this article came about. And It's where, let's see, it details one ranking system that Bruce Lee used from 65 to 68. Then there was a second one from 68 that was disbanded somewhere in 69, was reinstated by Inosano in the backyard gym, dropped in 1974. And then in 1988, when this article was printed, was written, it says that Sifu Dan and the late Taki Kimura had reinstated this new ranking system, which says unranked is a beginning student, first rank is intermediate, second rank is an advanced student eligible for apprentice instructor, third rank associate instructor, fourth rank full instructor, fifth rank senior full instructor, and then sixth rank was Inosano, seventh rank was Taki Kimura, and eighth rank was Bruce Lee. So no, Bruce Lee himself did not have associate, did not have apprentice, associate, full, senior, full. To the best of my knowledge, Bruce Lee did not have that set up in his method at all, right? In fact, the third rank, what you see here in this article, that third rank was instructor level. That's not, again, to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my understanding, that's not something that came from Bruce Lee. The idea that third rank was instructor level under him, right? That was kind of theorized or interpreted because James Lee, most famously James Lee, Dan Inosano, and others had been assigned third rank by Bruce Lee, and they had been given leadership responsibilities at the Seattle school, the Oakland school, and the Los Angeles school. So after the fact, third rank was interpreted to be perhaps instructor level. But during Bruce Lee's time, again, to the best of my understanding, third rank did not mean instructor. That came a little bit afterwards. So it's not something that Bruce Lee had set up. Ren says, I've always wondered, is there anybody out there to give rank in JKD without assuming they're going to be an instructor, or give an instructor rank as the highest level? All right, so Ren, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but I'll tell you this. So on the seminar circuit, for example, on the seminar circuit, there was no other ranking done other than somebody being appointed an apprentice instructor, let's say in front of the seminar group. So maybe that's what gave rise to the idea that Jeet Kune Do ranking was only applied to instructors and that there were no other Jeet Kune Do rankings. But again, that goes back to an individual thing. So in somebody's school, they could have whatever it is ranking system that they wanted to have. If we're talking about, for example, Sifu Inosano out on the seminar circuit. So I was made an apprentice instructor in 1985 at a seminar in Lansing, Michigan. My promotion to associate instructor occurred again at a seminar in Miami, as did my promotion to full instructor. All of those things occurred in the seminar setting, and maybe that's what you're talking about. Give ranking in JKD without assuming they're going to be an instructor. Yeah, because there was nothing else that was given, at least on the seminar circuit. And I think that was just Mr. Inosano's way of acknowledging the time and effort that somebody had put in. But if it gave the impression that the only ranks there are, or the only ranks there could be in the JKD world are instructor ranks, then that's a little bit unfortunate, right? Okay, here we go. Wait, I love this, guys, but it's so weird. Terry will appreciate this. It's so weird not on a Friday evening, not having anybody's voice in my headphones, but I will plot on. Ranks may help some students get in the feeling they're progressing, provide motivation, but in reality, if you know full well your punch is improving or not. Yeah. Well, again, rank the whole issue of ranking systems in martial art is just fraught with controversy, right? One school versus the other school, and then or within the same system, this person's approach versus that person's approach, and then within JKD, the fact that Bruce Lee never used belts and didn't believe in belts or whatever, and now years later there are people, and like I said, reputable people using belts and whatever. It's the whole thing is another one of the Jeet Kune Do messes that we get. But Ren says, I didn't right. I mean, there's people that are not interested in teaching, but they receive an instructor level ranking as a high degree. Yeah, right. Okay, so this is right. So we were talking about the same thing. Yeah, if it, but see, now if we go back to what I said, what I discovered about during Bruce Lee's lifetime, third rank did not mean instructor under Bruce Lee. It was just third rank. But people who had achieved third rank did happen to be put in charge. So after the fact, third rank was kind of interpreted as the first instructor level. So then it could be assumed that fourth rank would be another instructor level, fifth rank, and whatever. But I dare say, this is me trying to speak for Bruce Lee, that if Bruce Lee had been still around, it might never have been like that at all. It might have taken up to seventh rank or something to be considered an instructor. So for people who want to train and who are not interested in carrying the instructor title, but if what you are is somebody who is being trained on the seminar circuit, then yeah, there's I guess there's not that much for you, right? But yeah, it's like, it's something similar in the Thai boxing world where again, on seminar from Ajahn Chai, what people were awarded was apprentice instructor after taking their test. But that didn't even mean that people knew how to teach or that people were even interested in teaching. But that was the title or the rank given to them. So, right? Zach says, how important is FMA in JKD? Oh, God. Zach, it depends on who you're talking to. So some people find that attribute development for JKD purposes is enhanced by drilling in Filipino martial arts. So again, this is a thing, to a certain degree, this is a phenomenon that grew and developed, again, because of the seminar industry. For let's see, I want to put this judiciously. There were people who were hired to okay, no, let me rephrase it. Look, here's the thing. There are people who were well known because of their association with Bruce Lee. Some of them were well known. Some of them, when they became seminar instructors, taught only the stuff that they had trained with Bruce Lee. Other people taught other things, right? And you guys realize that I'm trying to be diplomatic here, right? So other people taught other things, and in an effort to, at some point, illustrate to the people on the receiving end of their instruction that that Jeet Kune Do could be an all-encompassing approach to martial art. Bruce Lee said, for example, when you understand motion, you understand style. So in Filipino martial art, there is the theory that the Ka in the word Kali is derived from one, the word katawan, which means the body, and two, the word kamay or kamut, which means the hand, and then the word lihok. The Li in Kali is derived from the word lihok, which means motion. So then Kali becomes the art of understanding and applying hand and or body motion. I personally have made much use of that explanation because it serves a purpose. So I don't have a problem with it. Somebody else in the JKD world could have a huge problem with it because, and now I'll try to speak for them, in their contention, Bruce Lee was not a Kali guy. And so since Bruce Lee was not a Kali guy, if you're going to be doing Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, then you're not supposed to be doing anything that Bruce Lee didn't do. Okay, so Bruce Lee was not a Kali guy. But I look, wait. Okay, so right there, we got him using the Tabak Tuyok. Then, you know, we got the famous picture of Bruce Lee using double stick. So yeah, he wasn't a Kali guy, but he had, even if it was just a cinematic appreciation for Filipino martial art, he had an appreciation for it. Now, I am not saying, therefore, that Kali is JKD. And by the way, none of the people, as far as I know, who, well, that's not true, because I did hear a story once where a person who was attending a seminar said, well, I was here for the Jeet Kune Do and all I'm seeing is Kali. And then that person was told, well, you just saw the Jeet Kune Do. Now, again, personally, I don't agree with that answer. That's not necessarily true because you have to understand what it is that people want. I'm doing a workshop for my good friend Sean Kelly in a couple of weekends up in Palm Beach County. And Sean has said that they want me to teach destructions. So now destructions, as you guys know, are attacks to the limbs, right? I can tell you that in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and again, Richard Torres could probably find the exact page, right? There are things that Bruce Lee referred to as rim shots, which are techniques that attack the limbs. So if it's in the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, and Bruce Lee classifies it as a rim shot, and if I go teach a workshop, and I teach what we call in Kali Panguba or Gunting or what have you, but these are destructions. These are attacks to the limb. To my way of thinking, I am not doing something very far removed from JKD philosophy. However, Bruce Lee himself did not popularize the Gunting. Bruce Lee did not popularize, except for that one thing, but you guys could tell me, I still to this day do not understand. Towards the end, the fight with Chuck Norris in the Coliseum, I still don't understand what the heck it is he does to his arm, right? So maybe somebody could tell me if that was a destruction or something. Anyhow, so that is a long-winded answer, Zach, to whether or not FMA is important. To some people, it might be. To other people, it might not be at all. And then still to even other people, it might be sacrilegious to say the words Kali and Jeet Kune Do in the same breath. Right? Mark Black says, it says, rank in these times does help students. Mark Black, rank has helped students since the dawn of time, right? So, Brooke says, it's important if you want skills against handheld melee weapons. Man, you can always tell the age of somebody when they use a term like melee weapons, right? I had to look that up when I first saw it. I mean, I recognized the word melee, right? But one of the things, Brooks, that I find interesting about that is that melee, which is if I have my linguistics down, melee is from the French, meaning to mix, right? But then it became a thing referring to like crowds and what have you. And then it is also related to melee, M-A-L-A-Y, right? That we get in Malaysian or Malay arts or what have you. So I think there's some kind of connection. Bruce said to take what's useful. So if we find something useful in, okay, all right, Zach, let me clear up a couple of things for you, because again, this is where you and I can get ourselves in trouble, right? Okay, Randy, I see here what you said, Jitsu. Randy, type in there and tell me what Jitsu means, because that's probably your phone not writing it correctly, right? But tell me what you mean by Jitsu. So Zach, I have to tell you this. When you said, Bruce Lee said to take what's useful, so if we find something useful in FMA, then we should absorb it into our JKD. No, Bruce Lee is not the author of research your own experience, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, add what is specifically your own. I know that that's on the internet. I have to say, just the other day, I found some images that correctly attribute that saying, what I call the 4 tenets of Jeet Kune Do, correctly attribute that saying to Dan Inosanto. Those are not Bruce Lee quotes. So you want to be a little bit. So Zach, I'm trying to help you to be better informed. I'm not being condescending. I'm just trying to be accurate and help you to be better informed. Stop saying that that Bruce Lee, that absorb what is useful is a Bruce Lee quote. It isn't. That stuff came from Dan Inosanto. There is a Bruce Lee connection to it, but it comes from Sifu Inosanto. Jitsu is a hyperextension to a punch. Randy, thanks for that, but I have never heard of Jitsu, but a hyperextension to a punch. Huh. Cool. Randy, you should shoot a video of that and send it to me so I understand better what you're talking about. Thanks for chiming in, though. All right, Terry says Kali can have an important part to play in JKD, but how much is dependent on the individual? After all, JKD is the art of the individual. Well, yes and no, right, Terry? Because remember, there's always going to be people who might dispute slightly that Jeet Kune Do is the art of the individual, because then that sounds as if you're trying to give people license. You're trying to grant license for people to go do whatever the heck it is that they want and call it their Jeet Kune Do, right? Again, another saying that people have gotten in trouble with, where it's like, well, you do this and that's your Jeet Kune Do. I do this and that's my Jeet Kune Do. So what we're doing is we're moving further and further away from what Bruce Lee did and called JKD. And now we're all doing whatever the heck it is that we want and think that we have permission or license to call it Jeet Kune Do. So the art of the individual, yes, but it's the art of the individual expression within certain parameters, right? Maybe even within certain confines, within the use of certain guiding principles, within the use of a particular methodology. Now, it can be expanded upon, yes, but if you're not paying attention to what Bob Landers would call the axiomatic principles, right? For example, if you're not paying attention to that, in fact, where did I see this? Michael Marcellus Brown. He just wrote something that said, for example, you have people who have no solid grounding in fundamentals, and they're talking about JKD this and JKD that, as if, right? As if JKD is the one art. JKD is the one art where you don't have to pay attention to the basics. You see, because JKD is a combination of this and a combination of that and whatever, and it's a blend of this and a blend of that. Wrong, 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 right? So that people think that JKD is something where you come in at the top, you know, with this and the next and the other thing, and this art and the second art and whatever, and all you have is a mishmash of stuff that you're calling Jeet Kune Do, and you can't even stand your ground, literally and figuratively, right? And that's a big, big problem in the JKD world. So thanks, Randy. Right? Okay, so you guys type comments faster than I can ever read. FMA has some Spanish fencing. After all, eskrima is a Spanish word for fencing, so one could argue that research at FMA could help their understanding of some of the fencing aspects of JKD. You could argue that, yeah. I don't know how convincing or how far you get in the argument, but it is somewhat of an intriguing retort, right? Which I myself have used, Brooks, right? But again, people would say, well, let's look at how you're performing your eskrima. And if they cannot find a relationship between the way you're performing your eskrima and the way Bruce Lee used his lead hand like a blade, then you're going to run into problems. You get what I'm saying? So again, it's an individual thing. So you might find somebody who uses a particular percentage of eskrima to develop or enhance his or her JKD, and then you might find another person who uses it to a greater degree. It is an interesting thing. Everybody knows that I'm a Dan Inosanto student, so they know that I have been raised in the Filipino martial art world, and and this is something that Sifu Inosanto himself and Burt Richardson will verify this as well if you don't want to take it from me. Sifu Dan has always encouraged us to understand why it is that we're doing Filipino martial art, right? He's never said that any of the stuff that we have been cross-trained in, I hate that phrase, but that's Terry Valor's phrase, and Terry's my boy, so I use it for Terry, right? He's never said that any of these arts constitute Jeet Kune Do, right? You know, the whole 26 arts that make up Jeet Kune Do stuff, right? Okay, Zach says, any reason why no high-level JKD practitioners compete in combat sports like MMA? All the guys who go insane, they're JKD, get their asses kicked. Bruce Leroy in the UFC. Is that really a thing? Bruce Leroy in the UFC? Look, okay, so I have a limited knowledge of exactly who has gone into the UFC and said JKD, but I know that John Jones, for example, has a JKD background through Kevin Seaman. I know, well, one person who maybe he's not yet, to the best of my knowledge, and again, I don't follow this stuff often enough, but in the MMA world, Jesse James Kosakowski, right, has done very, very well. He has accomplished a great deal through JKD and represents JKD in the MMA world. So I don't agree with you on this, Zach. And in any case, if you use just one metric to determine whether or not something is effective, you might need to expand your approach to it. And this is what I mean. If the only way to determine whether or not Jeet Kune Do as a martial art, to determine whether or not it is effective, is how is it used in combat sports like MMA? Now you got to ask yourself, is it the art or is it the artist, right? Because you go, okay, well, I train in JKD. I'm going to do a fight in the UFC. So if I win, then JKD won. I didn't win. JKD won. If I lose, then JKD lost. So now JKD sucks. No, I sucked that particular evening when I lost. When I won, I didn't suck. But it's me that's doing the fighting. The art that JKD can't show up inanimately, right, in the ring and win a fight. It's the people that are fighting, Zach. It's not the art. So to go, oh well, you know, why are there no high level JKD practitioners in MMA? The dudette has never entered any kind of beauty contest, but that don't mean she's not the hottest thing that I've ever come across. Okay, all right. Paul Johnson, if it's an individual art, then why did Bruce Lee have a system? Right, exactly. Right. See, yeah, we have to be very, very, very careful about this whole thing about the individual and the art. You got to be careful, because if the idea is, oh, well, Jeet Kune Do is an individual art, so you know, if 100 million people get involved in JKD, then we have 100 million interpretations of Jeet Kune Do? Hell no. No, that's not it at all, right? Terry, the principles and philosophy would be the guidelines. Yeah, you know, I think sometimes we use those terms interchangeably, Terry, right? The philosophy, the guideline, the principles, all that stuff. We kind of you know, go in and out using them, and maybe one day I'll do a broadcast where we try to identify or give specific definitions to JKD nomenclature, right? That might be something. Coast says, Coast, you got to teach your phone how to write stuff. Abide. I like that word though. I might start using that. Abide by the principles and you won't deviate too much from the source. Right, exactly, exactly. Right? The source, after all, was a human being. Of course, I like how you talk. But we do have strengths and weaknesses, and that dictates our differences in JKD. But then a uniting principle in JKD could be working on eliminating the weaknesses, right? Doing the work to remove your limitations. Coast, I think it was you who did the poll over on JKD First commentaries page about the areas that people, if I remember correctly, right, the areas that people felt they were lacking in, and I think the winner was ground fighting or grappling or something. So that might be that. So JKD people who realize and honestly accept that grappling might be where they're a little bit deficient, then if they're applying the philosophy and the principles that, so if they're applying, let's say, the philosophy that there is no distinct method of fighting that constitutes JKD, and that JKD possesses all. What do they call it? I'll butcher this saying, but JKD possesses all techniques, but in itself is possessed by none. Then yeah, you would go out and you would do what it takes to remove that limitation that you might have in grappling. But now here's the thing. If you go and in the way that you train grappling, it is completely antithetical to JKD philosophy, then it's incumbent on you to take what you're learning in that grappling arena and bring it back to JKD structure and apply it, right? Or train to apply it that way. That's the Jeet Kune Do. So JKD people who study Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, some might say, well, no, I study Jeet Kune Do, and then over here separately, I study Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then there might be somebody else for whom the Jeet Kune Do is that's the priority. So then the information that they garner from training in BJJ is brought into their Jeet Kune Do, and the two are not separate, or maybe they're trained separately, but then the BJJ is integrated into their Jeet Kune Do practice, right? Terry says the system was designed for the individual, even if you just stick to the material of Bruce Lee's LA period. The system was designed for the individual. Yeah, okay, all right. Paul says, Paul, right? It sounds like a cop out, right? Because I said what, Paul? That if it's an individual, right? You said if it's an individual art, then why did Bruce Lee have a system? Okay, but here's the thing, Paul. It's a cop out, right? You have to have a system if you are going to transmit. You have to have a system or a method, right, to transmit your knowledge and information to other people. If you don't, then you're probably not going to do a very good job of transmitting that information. So Bruce Lee had to have a system, even if it was just a system for information transmittal. That's what a system is. So, but within that, I'll speak for Bruce Lee here. I'm fairly sure that Bruce Lee didn't intend for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to look exactly like Dan Inosanto looked, because they're different individuals. But in performing a kata in a karate system, everybody's supposed to look the same way, because if you look different, then you're not doing the system, you're not performing the art correctly. So the system for teaching Pinan Shodan does not allow for individual interpretation. Everybody is kind of required to look the same way, because then they will be portraying or depicting or representing the art in the correct way. JKD is not like that. My kick is going to look different to your kick, even though we might train to produce the best, let's say, lead side kick that we have. And we might use similar or identical training methods, right? You know, using the kick shield, using the same footwork, all that kind of stuff. But for the simple fact that we are different individuals, the kicks might not look the same. Of course, when I side kick, I look exactly like Bruce Lee. I mean, you know, it's like because that's just how I roll. Right? Okay. So it's not a cop out, right? Russell says Ron and Eric fought before UFC. Yeah, Zach. So that's how you know that Russell's old school. And I should have made mention of that. There were Chad Stahelski, Ron Balicki, Eric Paulson, all renowned JKD people, all renowned Inasano Academy members, were fighting in the months preceding August or November '93 when UFC 1 came about. So there have been JKD people in the fight world for a long time. Right, that's true. And then Paul Johnson, I've looked at those videos. Paul Johnson has put people out there, and in fact, Paul, I think this is the Andy Wakefield. I think you entered him in a fight against somebody who had like a few years of training, and your guy had only a couple of months or something, if I remember correctly, right? Yeah, right. Brooks is talking about, yeah, that NHB, that no holds barred, man, that thing never, that name never took off, right? Because there's no alliteration. MMA rolls off the tongue a lot more easily than NHB, right? Okay, Paul says the utter cop out. All right, whatever. Zach says, what is your estimate on how many years of consistent training it take? No. See, again, for me to sit here, Zach, and say, oh, it takes this many years of consistent training to reach an elite level, right? Without being constantly able to intercept successfully. There's no way that we can measure that because, again, right? And I guess this is kind of a theme of what we're talking about. It's an individual thing, right? There's nothing that says everybody gets it at the same time. No, there's no way. So to paraphrase my JKD senior, Chris Kent, it takes as long as it takes. And that's it, right? Ground fighting and anti-grappling was the winner. Okay, yeah, right. Right, okay. Okay, all right, so I think that, I think I got this, I've seen everything there, right? So, all right, and we've been on for like 50 minutes, so I think that's good. That's a good follow-up. Thanks, guys, for showing up and bailing me out, right? You know, there's only one other thing that I enjoy doing more on a Friday if I have the opportunity, right? And that's to hang with the dudette. But other than that, it's to hang with you guys. So I appreciate you guys chiming in. Next, let me just pull it up here and make sure. Yeah, okay. So some of you, I think I've mentioned this before, but next Friday on the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues, I'll be on with Andy Kimura, right? So, and that's going to be a good one. You all know that Sigon Taki Kimura passed away recently, so I'm really appreciative of Andy for taking the time out to spend some time with us, and so I really encourage you guys to if you can, right, attend live. I think it'll be wonderful to help boost Andy's spirits. I'm not saying that he's down because I've heard that he's doing quite well, but I think it'd be really gracious if as many of you as possible show up in support of Andy and his late dad. In the book Way of Simplicity, there are some nice pages on the ground. Yes, Ren, yes. This is why I keep in the stack near at hand, right? I think more than, okay, to me, this is evidence of the continued evolution of JKD. Larry Hartzell has 4 books, and you guys know the late great Larry Hartzell was the premier JKD grappler. The stuff in Joaquin's book on grappling or anti-grappling is infinitely better than what's in Larry's books. Now, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. There is a time. So back then, Larry's stuff was the you-know-what, because he was the premier, and that's where in the JKD world, we had gotten to that point. We're supposed to keep evolving. So what Joaquin shows in his book is what I was talking about, somebody being, training in BJJ and then taking that information that they garner in BJJ and bringing it into their Jeet Kune Do training. In my estimation, that is exactly what Joaquin shows in Way of Simplicity. So I give that book, if I had more than 2 thumbs, all of them would point up to that book. And if I can be a little bit self-serving, if you have not seen my interview with Joaquin, then I direct you to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues YouTube channel. Right, this was about 3 weeks ago, and it's on there, and you guys can check that out. Right, okay, all right. So that'll do it for tonight. Thanks again for hanging out with me, and hopefully I'll see you guys back here next week when Andy Kimura, Jeet Kune Do royalty, man, I love that guy. Right, when Andy Kimura is here with us. All right, okay. Until then, have a great weekend, and you guys take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. All right.
Do it the other way.
Damn.
Do the other leg.
Jitsu.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's
Great job.
Okay, what are we doing now?